the CTE teachers have a great way of connecting with young people. And so that probably for me was the biggest difference from coming from a traditional high school.
Teachers make a great class.
Absolutely. Regardless of the class.
So there's an 8-second delay. So whenever you're on camera, it's gonna be delayed. Don't try not looking at it.
Okay.
Like these cameras are like the screens. Okay, that's different.
Okay,
Yeah.
It's actually really comfortable when you look at someone talking anyways, as opposed, well, I spend most of my day on the screen anyways, but I really reimburse them.
Lots of Zoom meetings.
We're on
Lots of Zoom meetings.
one air. Good.
Alrighty.
Without breaks in between. Is the thing about the Zoom meetings is people go hour to hour, and they don't want to go just 2 minutes over.
Just like it.
Yeah.
Good morning, Michigan. You're tuned into the Nest radio station, where we bring you the latest and greatest from around the state. I'm your host, Sarah Mean, and today we have a very special guest with us. Please welcome the Director of Career and Technical Education, CTE, for the great state of Michigan, Dr. Brian Pyles. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Pyles. It's an honor to have you on the show. So let's dive right in. So for our listeners who might not be super familiar with career and technical education, could you briefly explain what it is and its significance in today's educational landscape in the state of Michigan?
Absolutely. Career and technical education sets itself apart from the traditional programs and courses that you take within your high school. When you think of career and technical education, you're diving into and training for a specific type of occupation. You have the traditional classroom experience that all students have, but very few educational programs have the laboratory component of career and technical education, such as we're sitting in today. So here we are in your radio station, right?
Yeah.
You learn how to work in this environment in the classroom, but then you have the opportunity now to come sit down and use that and apply those skills to say, hey, what I learned I really like. And now that I'm learning, one thing, once you start to do something, then you actually have the ability to learn more, because it's like, okay, so what else comes along with this? And then for many of our career tech programs, students also engage in student leadership activities, where they may work with a student organization such as Future Partners of America, like NFA, or DECA, or Business Professionals of America, where they go to leadership trainings, and then they also go to competitions. So it provides an excellent opportunity for students to apply the skills in an environment where they're working with business and industry people who are like the judges of the events.
That's really some important thing. Now, Michigan has done a lot of strides in CTE over the years. Can you tell us some programs or initiatives that Michigan has been doing to help put in place help advance CTE opportunities?
Yes. Some of the more noteworthy activities that we've done is identifying industry recognized credentials for career and technical education students. We had about 54 state-approved types of programs, of which your radio broadcast is one of those state-approved programs. For about half of those programs, we've gone through a review process and identified 371 credentials that students can earn in Michigan's high schools. So we've completed about half of the programs thus far. And so we're really proud of that opportunity, because prior to this new initiative we started 4 years ago, there was 1 or 2 tests or credentials for each program. And so if you look at this, about half of those programs, you've gone from having, let's say, 50 credentials to 371. So there's much more flexibility for the programs to meet the needs of industry in your local community. And so say you were looking at the industry credentials for radio, TV broadcast, and you were to say, hey, our local employers here, they don't utilize any of the ones that the state's identified, but here's what they like to have. There's a process that the intermediate school district go through. They have that credential added. So we are trying to meet the needs of our programs and our workforce partners so students can secure employment and or take those credentials, get college credit, move on and get an associate's degree or bachelor's degree or beyond.
It's great to hear about those efforts. Now, as the job market progresses, how does Michigan CTE program adapt to make sure that students are prepared with skills they needed for jobs in the future?
As part of that process, we work with employers from across the state, and employers weigh in on those credentials to make sure that there are employers who are going to utilize those in the hiring process and the selection process, because it's important for our programs to teach the skills that are needed by business and industry. Many CTE program advisory committees, which are composed of industry professionals, will go over what they're teaching with those local business people and say, here's what we're teaching. Is this what we should be teaching? Should we get rid of something? Should we add something? And so we try to really work to make sure that we're staying up with the needs of our employers. And the best way to do that is through the advisory committee process and also through our review process as we adopt credentials at the State Department.
Pyles, if you don't mind, can you share with us what some challenges may be while working with these local agencies? Because you did describe that it is a long process.
So challenges that we may have in working through the credential process is that we're a very large state.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't always have employers from the east to the west, north to the south, in the lower and upper peninsulas.
Mm-hmm.
And so once we then roll out the credentials, then they start to identify the gaps and say, hey, we really need to have this credential added. And so that just takes some then additional time. Yet once we go through the initial review process, the add-on process is significantly shorter.
And so is it all through the CTE department, or are there other departments that you work with as well?
So the review process, which we call the Career Pathway Grant process, is working with local intermediate school districts. So in Wayne County, it's Wayne RESA.
Mm-hmm.
Oakland County is Oakland Schools.
Mm-hmm.
We work with those agencies, and they're the ones that actually carry out the initial work with the process, with working statewide with the employers and the teachers, and they also work with community colleges. Then it comes back to the department as recommendations. And to your question, we then work with the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, which is our state's workforce agency that works with our federal workforce system. And collectively, we work together on making a decision on which of the recommendations we're going to accept, reject, or send back questions. So it's a multi-agency review process, making sure that the employers have a strong voice, but also making sure that our teachers have a strong voice,
Mm-hmm.
because our teachers need to have a strong voice as well, so that we're all collaborative partners in this process.
So it's really interesting how there's so much collaboration and so much going on between different agencies. So what advice would you give to any students who are listening right now, or parents who are listening right now, who are interested in exploring all these CTE options? Because there is a lot.
So what I would recommend is that families work together and thinking of families as caregivers, because not everybody has like a mom or a mom and dad that are taking care of them, or other like help raise children across the state. The caregiver is to work with your high school counselor and take a look at what you've done for what's called student career development. And so Zello is a very popular program that school districts use in developing what's called the Student Educational Development Plan, or the EDP. And so have a conversation with the counselor, with the family, and look at the results of those assessments and see what because they determine your interests and your assessment of your aptitudes in other research, as far as like looking at like a day in the job, seeing what somebody does, watching some videos, and start to have conversation about what career tech ed programs are available to me through my local high school. So when I think about my local high school, the program, the CTE program, might be in the high school I'm attending, or I may go to a county technical campus and take a program, or I might go to another high school. So for example, in Berrien County, Michigan, which is located in the southwest corner of Michigan, below Benton Harbor, St. Joe, all the school districts south along the I-94 corridor, they don't have a county technical campus, But within the school districts, they all share about 55 CTE programs. So a student at Benton Harbor High School who wants to take machine tool will go to Coloma High School to take machine tool. But a student from Coloma High School who wants to take media broadcast, we have a media broadcast station set up just like yours, as well with a television station as well. The students from Coloma will go there. So across these school districts in Berrien County, students go from one district to another to carry those programs.
Hopping around,
Mhm.
driving to and
Right,
forth.
because not every school district in the county can offer a broadcast program, right? And so that's one of the ways they share. And so the important part of beginning this conversation of having the student and the caregiver talking with the school counselors, the school counselors are aware of where are all the programs located. However, if you go to myschooldata.org, so MI is in Michigan, but one word, all together, myschooldata.org, you can look at secondary programs, and there's a map on there of all the CTE programs in the state of Michigan.
Oh, wow.
And so you can look and see what's around your local area for programs to be decided to take. But that's my recommendation, is to have a conversation and do some research. And then once you look at it, you're like, hey, you know, I really want to be in a radio broadcast program. Well, then go out and do a job show. Call the local broadcast station, that's radio, and say, I really think I want to be a radio news reporter or personality or some role within that broadcast industry. Can I come spend a day to see what people do? And so before you enroll in the program, then you can get an idea of what people do on a day in the job. And that can be really important. Probably the story that always sticks with me is when I was a high school teacher, I had a student say, I want to be a veterinarian. She said, oh, I had to be a veterinarian. So we put her out on a cow show. When she went on the cow show, it wasn't just about playing with cats and dogs, right? You saw animals that were killed. You saw animals that went through surgery. It was a much different experience than she was expecting. And she came back and said, that's not for me. And it's really important to take that time at your age to go experience and see what's out there, to determine what you might want to do, but it can be even more important to determine what you don't want to do. So you don't spend time preparing for something you haven't experienced.
Time
So,
and money, yeah.
tie that up, go speak with your guidance counselor, your school counselor, and make sure you look for your student career development work that you've done, your educational development plan, and then find out what programs is available, and then go out and do a job show. That's what I would recommend to a student. It's a little bit of an involved process, but it's for the rest of your life, right? The start of your life. It's not really, it's just for the start of your life. And you want to make sure that when you start it, that you stay within what you're doing and enjoy it. Because I've had 5 different significant employment roles in life, all related to education. Okay, but each one has a different skill set, and so it's the beginning of your future.
And Dr. Pyles, you mentioned earlier that you yourself were a CTE student in your high school years, correct? So could you describe your experience from high school and then how you've seen the CTE program evolve and progress over time?
Absolutely, that's a great one. I really like it. Okay, so agri-science. I started in an agri-science program, and in my agri-science program, we were in a landscape architecture focus. Agricultural programs either are like farm animal focused, or they're landscape and architecture focused. So I was I'm a graduate of Portland High School, in Oakland County. I went to the Oakland Technical Campus Northwest, and I was taking that agriculture program. In that agriculture program, our instructor, Mrs. McCall, really helped us understand how to be entrepreneurs. So not only was she teaching us how to do all the functions of being in the landscape industry, how to prune, how to plant, how to design, how to draft all that out on drafting boards, but she taught us how to go out and seek employment as a private contractor. And so my first summer, which would have been the summer between my junior and senior year, I was working as a 16-year-old friend of mine, as a private contractor pruning fields of trees. There was a lady that we took care of. We mowed her lawn, weeded her flower beds, and cleaned her pool every day. I mean, that was the coolest job in the world.
Money.
It was. You're right. I mean, you got to fun right there. And Mrs. Masterson was her name. She was a delightful lady. And I shout out to her. She was awesome. And down on the call, our teacher taught us how to take the skills and put them to work and to be independent. And that's that component of CTE, which is the fourth component after student leadership, work-based learning. You get out into the field and you learn how to do and apply your knowledge and complete the work. I will tell you, if it wasn't for my CTE teachers, I wouldn't be sitting here with you today.
Wow.
And the important part of that is when I was in high school and they sent me to the CTE program, when it was time to take the SAT test, my school counselor said, "Oh, you don't need to take that SAT test. You're not college material. You're going to work in the agriculture industry. You're gonna be working, so you don't need to take that." Well, a surprise to that person, I'm now the state director for all those programs.
You didn't even take that SAT.
Exactly. I should have taken the SAT. But I started off the community college. And so I would say that's a very important fact within my education of my CTE teachers believing in me and still to help promote me through. But the beginning of this question always was, how is it different now?
Mm-hmm.
How it's different now is when I was in the program, you didn't have drones. And so now in our agriculture programs, we have drones.
So technology.
Like flying drones, right? And they use drones in the agri-science industry to evaluate the nutrient needs of the soil for plants. And so that's a big step forward. And so we do have aviation, safe radiation programs here in Michigan, and people always attach drones to that. But we also have drones within public safety because our officers utilize drones when they're evaluating a crowd. And not disruption in the crowd, but hey, taking a look here at a concert, you want to see if there's any suspicious behavior. They use them there. And so across different CTE program areas, we're using that. So I think that's one of the biggest changes in agriculture and in the programming is the introduction of drones within that particular industry. But I will always be just a staunch believer in our technical education teachers, because without my CTE teachers, I would not have the opportunity to talk to both of you, to meet your colleagues, and to visit your amazing career center here.
Oh, thank you. So you obviously did pursue a career in agro-science. Could you explain to us why? Like, was there a point in your life where like, I don't really want to do agro-science anymore or anything?
So I will, add a side note, I have a fantastic yard.
I bet you do.
I understand those pieces, and so I utilize those skills. But I decided that I wanted to be a CTE teacher. And when I decided I wanted to be a CTE teacher, my second year at the Career Center went from agri-science into accounting and finance. And my stepmother was a certified public accountant, commonly referred to as a CPA.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the research, children really want to be a sports figure, sure, a doctor, a teacher, the people they come into contact with often that are in those roles, or what their parents do or a significant adult. And so she probably had the job that required the highest level of education out of all of my family members. And so she was a CPA, so I took accounting. So then a friend of mine and I, who she now works have her for a long time for Oakland County, county employee in the office system there. We decided that we were going to be teachers together. And we really liked our CTE teachers at the CTE Center. And we wanted to teach together at a CTE Center. And so I, since I didn't have a plan for after high school, one day I went down to Oakland Community College and had a conversation with a really nice lady in the Career Center. And she put us through this, it was called What Color is Your Parachute? It was a paper process back then because we didn't have the technology that you all have today,
Yeah.
right? But it was like a Zello program I was talking to you about, like your educational development plan. It helps you identify what you wanted to do. And teaching ranked high for both of us. So from there, I started taking courses and transferred to Eastern Michigan University and became a teacher. But I decided to pursue the marketing business finance component of teaching, not the agri-science component of teaching. Why? Because I wanted to teach with my friend. And her name is Becca. In fact, now I'm going to have to tag her on Facebook and say, hey, Becca, I was talking about you. We just communicated on Facebook just the other day. We were putting pictures up on Facebook and having some fun with it. But yeah, that's why I pursued it, is that I get some help and some reinforcement that teaching was the right direction for me. I wanted to teach with my friend who decided not to become a teacher, so we never talked about it. And I was actually a teacher for 10 years in high school.
Plans.
So you went from being a CTE student to a CTE teacher and now a CTE director for the entire state of Michigan, correct?
Yes, and prior to the state job, I was the county director
Mm.
in Shiawassee counties and Berrien counties, the county director for CTE prior to coming to the state. And actually, I announced at the Career Education Conference that my last day with the Department of Education will be Friday, August 16th. I've been here about 6 years.
Oh, wow. So could you explain to us, you've obviously had a first full circle moment. You were a student, now you're the director. So could you explain to us what is different from each role? So obviously as a student, it's completely different than being a director. But like, what did you not expect being a director entailed?
So if you contrast the county director role compared to the state director role, at the county director role, I would be working with all of the CTE programs across my county. And I would be helping the local CTE directors with their needs and to help them with all their program improvement needs, to help move Career Tech Ed forward. I would also work to collaborate together as local leaders and local school districts to help strengthen one another and to learn from one another. And we would meet and collaborate regularly as we would go through the process. And also, I would be the link to the state and for all the required state submissions, but also to receive the funding at the county level to disperse it through the local school districts. So when I left my county position, I took about 18 months where I was doing consulting work. I knew the state director was going to retire, and I decided to retire from the public education system and wait for that position. And so when I heard she had resigned her position, I quickly put my application in, and obviously was a successful candidate for it. When I came to work for the state, you think that Michigan Department of Education, you're working for the biggest school district in the state. Not to be further from the truth. So when you think of intermediate school districts, you know what they are, like in Marisa and all the school districts that are in Wayne County. You think about how they function together. I thought that the Michigan Department of Education, with all the intermediate school districts, had a similar relationship. But in this role, it's all about policy and procedure and legislation. And so my role is about working with state elected officials on legislation. And then when the legislation comes in, working with my team on the interpretation of that and setting out the guidelines for school districts to access the opportunities, whether they're professional development training or money for partners. And so it's a much different type of other role function. And when you're in a county and you're helping all your school districts and they all have individual needs, yet there's some strong commonalities about what they need. When you start looking statewide, as I mentioned earlier about how large our state is, every decision I make impacts every school district in the state of Michigan. And so you have
No
to
pressure.
be careful in that process that you're taking the time, which can be very frustrating for people. It was hard for me to learn how to do because I moved much more quickly than that. But you just have to make really thoughtful, diligent decisions because you might be influenced by a particular school district or a county, but you need to find out from all of the counties what the needs are because of the impact of the decision that you make and how broad it is.
So you're looking at the wider picture.
Much better picture.
Yeah, because it goes from being so specific to literally the entire state.
Yes.
It's harder.
So it was a huge learning curve for me. It was like, oh, this is a little bit different than I thought it would be, and I've really enjoyed it. In the things, in the accomplishments that we have made, but it's different. It takes some time to learn.
Well, look at where you've come. You've made it. So, Dr. Pyles, I have some very exciting news for you right now. We're going to play a game. Are you ready?
I am ready for the game.
So this game will work. It'll be like around 30 seconds to a minute. And so how it'll work is I'm going to ask you a series of questions. They'll be back to back. So the second you finish answering one question, I'm already asking you the next. Okay? So you got to think on your feet. So these questions are more for us and our listeners to get to know you more as on a personal level as a Michigander. And so they're all related to Michigan, Michigan-based products and all that. Okay?
Yes.
Let's start. So what's your favorite flavor for a Faygo drink?
Red Hot.
Okay, nice. Favorite flavor for Better Made chips?
Barbecue.
Favorite Mackinac fudge flavor?
Milk chocolate.
Which do you like better, meat shawarma or chicken shawarma?
Chicken.
Good choice. Okay, if you had to draft one football player for your team, would you take Barry Sanders or Calvin Johnson?
Berry.
Nice. Okay, Sanders dark chocolate or milk chocolate?
Milk.
Okay, last one. Ready? If you had to draft one basketball player for your team, would it be Isaiah Thomas or Chauncey Billups?
Isaiah.
Good. Look at you. You did great. Thank you for that. And thank you for sharing your knowledge of CTE. At this time, we're going to take a short commercial break. For now, we're leaving you with one of today's hottest hits here at the Nest, Training Season by Dua Lipa. Okay, welcome back to the Nest radio station. I'm your host, Sarah Mean. Today we have a very special guest with us. Please welcome the Director of Career and Technical Education for the great state of Michigan, Dr. Brian Pyles. Let's get right back into it.
So I know before the break, you were talking about how you're adapting the CTE program, so always communicating with schools and stuff like that. But right now, let's talk about accessibility. So how do you make sure that all your workforce development programs like CTE are accessible to everyone in Michigan, including people from marginalized communities?
So we have a process called the Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment. And each local school district that provides career and technical education programs needs to go through this process. And within this process, we look at equity and access. We take equity and access in the sixth section of that process to a level of specific student populations, so that we look at students with disabilities, students that are homeless, students that are in the foster care system, students that have parents in the military. We have 9 different indicators. And school districts have to then look at their enrollment to see if they have students from all of those different areas in their school. Do they have equal access? Are students enrolling in those programs? And so say you have students that are in the foster care system, and you don't have any students in CTE programs that are in the foster care system. Then you have to start looking at and identifying why those students aren't in those programs. Same with, even if we're talking about all the other student groups I was talking about, they look at those. That tool from the local district then goes up to what I call the intermediate school district I referenced earlier, like Risa. Then they take a look across the county at all of the CLNAs and start to look at it from a county perspective to see if there's any gaps. And if there are gaps, to understand why, and implement strategies so that those students then have knowledge and access. And sometimes it's as simple as students knowing the programs exist, or you know what, we have a new school counselor. Has a new school counselor been educated on all the different CTE programs that exist across the state, and also in looking at making sure that we're providing equity for all of our students. But we do have some very formal processes for that. I also have a member on my staff who spends time putting on professional development to help train school districts in equity and access strategies to improve student enrollment and engagement. And so we turn a pretty strong focus on making sure all students are served.
Your work is really valuable, Director, and thank you for all that you do. Looking more into the future, what do you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities for the CTE in the state of Michigan?
Staying up with the ever-changing technology. And so when I used my example earlier of having the drones, think now about artificial intelligence. Think about ChatGPT 3.0 versus 4.0. Do you know what the difference is, right? We know which one you should be using. All of that is happening so quickly in our society that one of our biggest challenges is going to be staying up on that technology, and then making sure our teachers across the state have that knowledge, so that they can stay up on it as well and have effective teaching strategies for that. And as I look also to of emerging careers and changing occupations, are we training individuals for their future? And as we think about our automotive programs, all of our automotive programs have the EV component to them, because being an EV technician is much different than being a traditional combustion engine technician. And are we making sure that our programs have that knowledge so they can impart it to our students? Because the ones who are graduating now, and going into automotive repair, or going to transition probably to a much stronger EV focus over the next 2 decades as the number of EV vehicles continues to increase and the combustion engine vehicles decrease. And so program by program, staying up on those changes and making sure our teachers have the knowledge to then teach their students. That's going to be our biggest challenge. And information changes so quickly now, technology changes so quickly now. That's what we have to keep a laser focus on.
So these are all really important points that you just said. So you talked a little bit about how you have priorities and goals, but can you expand on that? So what are really your main goals for advancing CTE in the state? And what are your plans to achieve them?
So when I mentioned the 371 credentials earlier, and half of the programs having gone through a review process, our number one goal is to get the rest of the programs in that review process, and then set into motion a review that is on a cycle, so that we're looking at programs more regularly and removing credentials that are no longer of value, and then adding new credentials that are of value because of the changing needs of that occupation and the skill set.
Constantly updating, constantly changing.
So, Director, when you say credentials, can you describe what you mean by that?
Yes. And so when I talk about credentials, there are credentials in information technology, and there are very specific credentials for programming, for gaming, for cybersecurity. And so these credentials are provided by industry associations, and they are create an assessment system where our students take the assessment, and if they pass the assessment, they're awarded the industry credential as recognized by that industry. Here at your CTE center, I was touring the programs this morning, and we were talking about the certified nursing assistant, which is a state license.
Mhm.
So the credentials can also be a state license, not just from an industry representative group. There's different bodies that have the authority for these credentials. And so the students who are in the program here will have an opportunity to take the CNA assessment, which is a state license. And so there's a variety of different types that are available to students. They normally have a testing requirement.
So, after passing these testing requirements, they're recruited into the workforce immediately?
So after they complete these, they have the opportunity to take those and to apply for positions within the workforce.
Oh, okay.
Some credentials require you to be 18 years of age.
Mhm.
They might let you take, and some actually allow you to take it before you're 18, but not use it until you're 18.
Like a driver's license.
Yes. And some don't allow you to actually sit for it until you're 18. So there's a lot of variance in all of the different credentials, but not that in some situations, there may be employers working with your CTE program that says, hey, if you can graduate 17 students, I need 18 of them,
Mhm.
because we have a lot of need. In other situations, you have to go out and seek the employment. And so your question is very specific about being recruited to. And so just so I don't create a false image, in some situations, there are employers that are waiting there for you. In other situations, you take your credential out and then you start to apply for positions.
Got it.
Yes, in the industry, the workforce development needs where the worker pipeline is.
And so, as the director for the entire state of Michigan, do you see any programs that have more students applying to them that catch more the eyes of students more?
Our business marketing finance programs are probably the programs with the highest student enrollment. And one of those reasons that I believe we have that is they're in our high schools. And so students don't have to travel to take the program. So it makes it easier for them to fit into the program. And if you want to be a health science professional and you would like to be an occupational therapist, or you want to be a nurse, or you want to be a CNA, well, if you take business program at your high school, it still benefits you because you're working for a business.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some really basic principles within those programs that you can then use across all the sectors in society.
They're very versatile. So before we wrap up, are there any other points that you'd like to make about CTE in Michigan?
When I think about CTE in Michigan, I believe that it should be an opportunity that is afforded to all of our students, and that each school district should put out the menu of offerings so students can make a decision based on their interests and their perception, of their abilities, because it creates opportunities for you to engage your learning. It gives you an opportunity to apply what you've learned, like we're doing right here, right now, in your broadcast center. It gives you an opportunity to work with teachers who have the related industry experience, and you gain knowledge from their examples of what they've done over their life through their employment. It is a nationally proven student engagement tool that increases high school graduation.
Mhm.
And so it's just an excellent opportunity. Looking to my example about the student in veterinary sciences, if you want to be, say, a nurse, but you've never actually drew blood or given someone a shot, right? Once you do that, you might then decide, oh, I don't want to make people cry. Or you think, oh, I want to work with babies. Well, very few babies come out of the pediatrician's office laughing, right? It's not an experience that they always like. And so it gives you just an opportunity to apply your learning, because there are a lot of programs, once you get into your post-secondary training component, you don't actually get that opportunity to go to business and industry. What I would recommend to all students across the country, not just our great state, is that you take time to do job shadows, go see what's going on. Then once you're in an area that you believe in, go into an internship. And even if it's unpaid, do you have time for a little story?
Yeah, go for it, of course.
The best unpaid internship story that I have is my friend, Sharon Gangsley, her son, Corey. Corey went to Corona High School in Shiawassee County, went off to Michigan State University for his bachelor's degree. He was there when Governor Granholm was in the seat, and Lieutenant Governor Cherry was working then as well. Corey had an opportunity to become the scheduler for Lieutenant Governor Cherry, but it was unpaid. So then the second year, Corey said, I really do need to get paid. I can't work for nothing for 2 years. So then he got paid. So after that, he went on to be the scheduler this was after President Clinton was not in office. So he became the scheduler for President Clinton.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, and President Clinton, he's based out of New York.
Mhm.
And so he moved to New York and was President Clinton's scheduler.
That's crazy.
Well, then remember, unpaid though. He didn't get paid for a year, right? Then he's like, I think I want to live in England. So what does he do? He becomes Tony Blair's former prime minister, his scheduler. And
Wow.
he's now back in the United States, in New York, working for President Clinton again.
Oh my God.
All because of an unpaid internship. We all want to be paid. We all want to be paid. There's no doubting we want to be paid. But he has been paid.
Yeah.
His mom was at a concert, and he has the right connections. He made a phone call, and all of a sudden, from around backstage, his mom gets a big old bag of swag. Because he's made all these connections, met all these important people. And it has all these great experiences. So I would say, whether you're in a state-approved career tech ed program, or you're going through the high school and you're not taking a CTE program, you're thinking about what you want to do with the rest of your life, and say maybe you're taking a lot of math and science because you want to go into the health sciences, all students would benefit from job shadows and internships.
Wow. What a beautiful way to end that podcast. I really enjoyed that story. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Pyles, and for sharing your insights on CTE in Michigan. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. That's all the time we have for today, folks. Stay tuned for more great programming here on the Nest radio station. Until next time, this is Sarah Mean signing off. Goodbye and have a wonderful day. Good.
Okay, this will probably be the
HES Academies have been serving the Detroit metro area for over 23 years, promoting academic excellence, leadership, and cultural diversity, ranking as some of the top schools in the state of Michigan. Our pre-K through 12th grade students enjoy tuition-free, state-accredited education by STEM certified and highly qualified staff with no geographical restrictions, and with advanced placement, college dual enrollment, scholarship, and Arabic language programs. Nor International Academy in Sterling Heights at niapsa.org, Star International Academy in Dearborn Heights and in Canton at starpsa.org, Universal Academy in Detroit at universalpsa.org, and Universal Learning Academy in Westland at ulapsa.org. Join HES Academies today